was just like that power that I received from reaching down and grabbing my own baby and bringing her to my chest. I was like, this is Shakti. This is the most powerful force of all, that as women, we can literally create life.
Welcome to the Empower and Evolve podcast, a space where we will explore topics ranging from mindset to career to business, energetics, spirituality, cyclical living, and beyond. I am your host, Kat Tunnyberg. I am a mindset coach and integrative practitioner on a mission to help you take your life magical. Without further ado, let's plunge into today's episode. Oh my goodness. Another beautiful, beautiful episode. I hope you're ready for it. In this episode, I'm joined by Kelsey Phillips. She is a beautiful human being who I've had the pleasure of connecting with. She entered my realm through the Earth Daughters network, and straight away I was drawn to her. There was something about her that I knew was different, and there was something I knew I could learn from her. So let me tell you a little bit about the beautiful Kelsey. She is a conduit of Kundalini Shakti, and she's a teacher of the Temple of Kundalini Activation, aka KA, which is a Kundalini Activation facilitator training with a sacred feminine safe space holder approach. She's a mystical mama to 3 goddesses living on the coast of Ecuador with her beloved. And in this episode, she shares her story of overcoming trauma and hardship from working as a nurse during COVID to now building a beautiful spiritual business, facilitating Kundalini activations. And I've had the pleasure to experience Kundalini activation with Kelsey twice. The first time was like back in February sometime, and it was virtual. And it was a really, really powerful experience, like nothing I've ever experienced before with energy work. I remember laying on the floor of my office and just feeling the Kundalini Shakti energy start to move up from my legs. Like I could feel the serpent move up through my body. And then I literally felt like I was being lifted up through my chest. My chest rose up, my chin rolled up, my head rolled back, and I literally felt like I was floating for most of the session until I was then fully grounded down. It was such a wild experience. And then I had a in-person session with her at Earth Daughters, which was way more grounding, way more internal, just very kind of bringing my energy back, which was exactly what I needed that day as I was about to present and do some other really beautiful work. So I'm really excited for you to get to know her, to hear her story, and learn more about this really powerful form of energy work. I know you're going to absolutely love this episode. Welcome to the Empower and Evolve podcast. I have a very special guest here today, Kelsey Phillips, Shakti Mama on Instagram. Oh, I'm so excited for you all to meet this beautiful goddess and hear about her journey and the beautiful work she's doing. Welcome, Kelsey.
Thank you, Angel. I'm super happy to be here with you.
I always like to start with your story. And I know that this is such a loaded question because it's like there's so much to our stories, right? There's like years and years of how we got to where we are. But just trust your intuition to share the parts of your story that you feel need to come out today and how you got to where you are today and what life was like before you got here.
Absolutely. Yeah, I have such a beautiful story, and truly, it all kind of connects to my spiritual path, as we are all spiritual beings. So at the age of 19, I really dove into the world of yoga, and I was very in Western yoga, like very masculine yoga, now looking back on it. And so it was power yoga. So of course, like very masculine.
That's how I got into it too.
Which is like, I'm like totally in this feminine era embodiment now. And it's so interesting how that was my spiritual journey and how it started. Um, and now I won't set foot in a power class. So yeah.
I'm the
Um,
same. Oh, that's so interesting.
yeah. Yeah. And so I grew up, in a broken family, divorced parents. That's all I've ever known since I was 2 years old. I faced a lot of trauma in my childhood and really was just in my masculine to repress and avoid all of that pain. I was avoiding the home. I worked 3 jobs as a teenager. I did every sport possible to stay busy, um, to just, yeah, really, I see and I look back at my story now was I really just stepped into so many different things to try to receive love from my parents. And so I had a 4.2 GPA as I graduated. I graduated with like 30 college credits. I went straight into nursing school. I just really I excelled on all the levels. But then on the other side of that, I was like the biggest partier. I just was like such a social butterfly and had like this rebel side to me as well. So it was really interesting that I was, in this duality of being the good girl, but also being the rebel, and sneaking out and having parties and doing all the things, right? And so I realized I was just really lost from all of the trauma that I'd faced and didn't have the support, didn't have emotional support. And I love my parents dearly. They did their best, right? We always do as parents. I'm a mom now. It's like we do our best. And I've learned so much through my own childhood. And now it's been so deeply healing to be a mother myself and offer just such a beautiful childhood to my children with presents. And a huge reason why we're here in Ecuador is to be able to be home with them because it really wasn't possible in the States. So yeah, I went to nursing school. I was really burnt out from school after I completed, and I wanted to be a yoga teacher. And so I traveled the world a lot. I would just, work like serving jobs, teach yoga. I just did all the different things to be able to go travel and just kind of and see more what was out there in the world. I was just hungry for other cultures and experiences that I wasn't getting in the States. And it allowed me to see so much more. It allowed me to see, like, for me, like, what is happiness? Like, I'm going to Central America, and this was my first trip out of the States. I was like 18. And I saw how happy these people were with nothing. They were just literally sweeping their dirt floors, living a very simple life by the beach. And I was like, I want that. Like, this is amazing. And their hearts, like Latin American people, their hearts are so open and beautiful and just golden. And I just knew from that moment I was not going to live in the States. It just wasn't for me. The masculine culture, the hustle, it was just like it didn't connect to my heart. And so I had this goal or intention to eventually move away. And I didn't know how fast it would happen. And it happened really fast. So basically, I met my husband. We traveled a bunch together. He was in Peace Corps in Costa Rica. So he did have this background of being abroad already, was fluent in Spanish. So he's just comfortable with this way of life. And that was one of the first conversations that we had, like deep conversations, because we had this amazing story. We met at like a party on Memorial Day, a holiday, and I saw him from across the pool. And I just like, when you see that person that's your soulmate and you lock eyes, I was like, wow, I've known you for so many lifetimes. And yeah, and so I was actually going to teach a yoga class after that party, and I was like, I gotta go teach yoga, and I was like, and I'm going to Costa Rica in like 2 weeks. Just like telling him like, hey, I'm really busy and I do want to spend time with you, but this is just me.
Yeah.
And it was I was like also really done with love at that point. I'd been in 2 long-term relationships that were not healthy at all.
Mhm.
And so I just felt like my heart's really closed and you're really cool. And I don't know, I've just like been through so much with love. And so basically, I got on that plane to Costa Rica, and just 3 days before I left, he's like, I booked a ticket and I'm going to come see you there. And it was like, what? This man's gonna come meet me there, because I kept telling him like this is my solo trip. Originally, that trip was booked with my ex-boyfriend. And then I was like, no, this is gonna be my solo girls trip. I was really about solo girls travel. So I really wanted to have that experience. And I did. He was like, he's like, don't worry, I'm just gonna come for 1 week out of it was like 3 weeks or a month. And he was like, I'll just come for 1 week. You'll still have your solo time. I had some girlfriends meeting me at the end of the trip. He's like, I'm gonna come in right in between. And I met him there in Costa at an airport. My phone wasn't working, and I just like trusted he would show up, and he was there with a rose in hand and just like picked me up, and his whole body was shaking. It was like such a movie moment. Um
Wow.
and yeah, I was like, "Oh my gosh, this man really wants to know me." And because I'm a busy person, like you're going to have to chase me to know me. And we traveled to Nicaragua and we had the best time. And then we came back to Costa. I just wanted to go across the border and have that experience and be in San Montestor. I felt really called to that place. And then we came back. And we actually met up with some mutual friends in Costa. And it was just such a really like spontaneous adventure where we didn't book any places. We just literally let like the wind guide us. And we were so held, and I truly felt like I'm so in love with this person. Like I will marry you tomorrow after all
Wow.
of that. And after, my heart being closed, I was just like, whoa, who is this guy? Like, where did you come from? Like another planet. It just felt like so like unexpected. And I find like that's when the love comes, right? When we're like completely not, yeah, it's just completely out of the blue, not expecting it.
Wow.
And so basically we got back to the States, and we booked another trip to Ecuador. And then we booked another trip to Cuba. So we just kept traveling as well. To really, I find that in relationship, we know each other so deeply when we travel together.
Yes, I agree.
And that just really helps. Yeah, it just helps you understand and have new experiences together that we wouldn't normally have in the mundane of life of working and hanging out. And so yeah, one of the first conversations I had with him that was really deep, I was like, I want to have babies and I want to move abroad. And he was like, cool, me too. And he was totally down, and I was like, okay, that's cool, you passed the test. Like that was the only test, like not be in the military, don't smoke cigarettes. Like those were like very
Love it.
like very,
Simple.
yeah, simple, like these two things, and move abroad and have babies, like want to have a family. And so, yeah, basically we got back from all these trips, and I just got to a point of, wow, I really want to have children. I want to get married. I want to buy the house. I felt like this deep desire to have, the American dream and just see
Yeah.
what unfolds. So I actually went and got licensed to be a nurse. After I went to school, I finally took the test and did the thing and got a job at one of the best hospitals where I lived. And they were so confused. They were like, what were you doing for 5 years since you went to school? And I was like, just being a yoga teacher and traveling. And they were like, okay, you should go to oncology. You have a great background for that. So I was on an oncology floor doing night shifts. And so I worked night shift for 2 years, got pregnant, we bought the house. So we had all the things. I had the car, the house, the baby. And, in society, having a baby in the States, it was very lonely. I had no friends with babies. I had no community that was there to support me. And I definitely went through some depression after I had her because I was just by myself. And then I had to go back to work after 3 months, and she was just like this tiny little baby. She wasn't even 3 months old. And yeah, it was wild. I was like, it just felt so unnatural. I was like, I cried when I went to work every single day. And that moment that I went back to work, I told myself, by the time she's 1 year old, I'm done with this job. And I talked to my partner, and I was like, we need to sell our house. you know, in the States, like after you have your home for 2 years, you don't have to pay taxes when you sell it. Um,
Cool.
it's like a 2-year law. So we were like, all right, we're almost to 2 years. Let's sell it right at the 2-year mark and let's go move abroad and figure it out. And so we made that decision, and then the pandemic started to unfold at the same time.
Mm.
As soon the day it went on the market, the house went on the market, the pandemic was like, we were in Puerto Rico trying to get a flight back home. And then I was like a nurse in the pandemic, so I got to see that
Wow.
perspective of it. And our hospital was completely empty. It was literally like, this is a joke. Like, this is so just like, I just felt like in my own intuition, like, this is not, not okay. And then my partner, he was an ocean rescue supervisor. So he was keeping people off the beach. And he was like, this is so weird. We're keeping people off out of nature. Like the one place you can go to just watch the sunset and just to be in clean, fresh air. We can't allow people. It was wrong on so many levels. And so we just felt like this is such confirmation that we don't need to be here anymore. And then, you know, as a nurse, I was like, okay, like I see all the darkness of this. And I had hit a moment where I was giving chemo to a patient. And I literally felt like I had this knowing come in, you're killing them. Like I just felt like, oh, I'm like creating the worst karma ever right now. I'm literally giving a medication to kill someone, to blow up, you know, all of the goodness, all of the badness in their body, right? And after, you know, going down my own healing journey, I studied a lot and I went into German medicine and I learned that, you know, it's just a healing phase, that our body is truly always trying to heal, but we don't address the energetic or the
Yeah.
spiritual or the environmental perspectives of
Yeah.
our human experience. So I saw like all of the darkness of the system and I was like, I got to get out. And so they offered a furlough position. They were like, okay, we can let you go. We'll pay you this much amount, but when we call you, you have to come back to work. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to take the risk. Like, I'd rather
Uh-huh.
get paid to be off, even if
Uh-huh.
it's a very minimal amount. I like literally, like, it was like killing my soul being there. I just couldn't.
Uh-huh.
And so in 2 weeks, they called me to come back. I was like, wow, that was quick.
That's in-
Yeah, I was like, what are you doing? Why did we even do this dance? So I was just like, okay, here's my 2 weeks at that
yeah.
point. And so I finished my 2 weeks and I left on a good terms because I just feel like that's who I am, right? To be in integrity with my work.
Mm-hmm.
And we sold our house and we lived in our camper on the road for a while
Wow.
because we actually planned to move to Costa Rica. I rented a house for us in Pavones and um, our flights kept getting canceled because of the pandemic.
Interesting.
They were like, anyone from Florida can't come in. And so then they kept canceling our flights. So by the time we booked the fourth flight, I was like, okay, like spirit, show me where I need to be because this is not working. And I, you know, I didn't really imagine myself living in a camper at this point. Like
Mm-hmm.
I imagined myself to be in my new community, experiencing
Mm-hmm.
life or just traveling somewhere. And so I was looking at Hawaii, I was looking at Mexico, and then Ecuador came back into my field of like, what about that place that we loved called Ayampe, this little surf town? And I was like, I told my partner, I was like, let's go. And we're just gonna go with 5 bags. So that way, if we want to keep traveling and then we want to get to Costa Rica from Ecuador, we can do that. And so we arrived with I think she was 18 months at that point,
Wow.
our first daughter. And we came to this sweet town and it was just the same. It literally hadn't changed at all. And it was so super quiet, not a lot of people. And yeah, they had like the mask thing here, but I just wouldn't wear it. And it was just like, you know, I just like did what I could, right? And here they have fruit trucks that go in front of your house. So it's like I didn't really need to go to the city. It was only the city where they had like mask and show your vaccine card thing. And I
Right.
actually made a fake one. I was like, here's the fake one. Photoshop. Yeah. And I was just like, no fucks. Like, I'm sober and like, I'm just a
Yeah.
sober being. And I'm going to do, and I actually like to get into the country, I did the same thing because I
Yeah.
was just like, I didn't inject any of my children with
Yeah.
anything. And I was such a black sheep nurse that had a home birth that didn't believe in vaccines. I felt like that's like the only thing that I really like that feeling of like, wow, I'm killing, but also there was I was that angel in the
Yeah.
night
Did
where
you find
people,
that you got like outcasted by the other nurses because of this?
no, they just really they didn't
Okay.
know.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I would be like, hey, I'm moving to Costa Rica, and they're like, Puerto Rico. Like they just had no idea. They've never traveled. They're just
Okay.
like so confused. They're like,
Okay.
no way. They just like wouldn't believe me. They're like, no way. And I'm like, yeah.
Mm.
And I was with oncology patients and they were like asking us to push vaccines on them. I'm like, they have chemo being blown up in their body. That's like not what they need right now. And so I would just say, hey, you're immunocompromised. It's really not a good time to have a vaccine. Do you want one? And they'd be like, no. So I'm just like convincing them in a way, just like
Yeah.
as doctors convince them to have the chemo, right?
Yeah.
And so I just felt like this angel in the night of like, at least I'm going to be here and be present with these people and hold their hands and support them. And I realized I just like took on a lot of the pain that I saw. I could feel everything. I was very sensitive, but didn't know. And I didn't know how to protect myself in that way. And so I would just get off work and drink wine at 7
Right.
a.m. and like do
Wow.
everything that I could to kind of like
Yeah.
repress all that I saw or just like scream or cry in my car because it was just so
Wow.
intense. Like I saw so much yeah, I just saw so much sadness of the medical system and patients that should have not been there. They should be home with their family, and they were going crazy because they've been in hospital for months, pumped with
Mm-hmm.
drugs. They were
Mm-hmm.
literally going crazy, and I saw that, and it was just so disheartening, so sad. And so I just felt like this is not the reality I want to live in at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
And I just take such responsibility. I was like, I'm going to choose different. I'm going to get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I broke free from the matrix, like fully.
Yeah. Man, that would have been so wild to be a nurse in the COVID days. Like sometimes I think back to all of that and I'm like, did we really go through that? Like, was that real? Like, it just feels like so surreal. Everything that happened during that time is just like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
I could just think, I don't know. Did you find it hard to leave the country and actually get on a flight?
No, I mean, I got all the paperwork that I need to
Okay.
get, created the COVID cards,
Right. Yeah.
like, and I was like, how are they going to look up in in a
Yeah.
database and see that I really got this? They're not.
Yeah. No, they're not. It's, yeah, for sure.
It was just kind of like, how fearless are you? Right.
Mhm. Yeah. It's a test
And
of
so
the,
it was like, I have to play the game. So I'm going to
uh,
play the game to
yeah.
go where I want to be in the world.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so we came here and we made money off of the sale of our house. And we were like, all right, either we're going to spend this to keep traveling or we're going to reinvest it. And right when I got here, I got pregnant with my second daughter.
Oh, wow.
So it was like, okay, we're staying. Because after all of that, even after leaving my job, I felt like, oh, I'm gonna feel better. I'm gonna, sleep at a normal time now. I'm gonna start feeling better because I just felt so like an empty shell
Uh-huh.
from working nights. Like the yo-yo, I would go back and forth. I would be up all night with my daughter, and then so it just like there wasn't much sleep happening at all. And there was no recovery. And my adrenals felt like they were shot because every time I was at work, there was like alarms and beeps and things happening. And even though I was really grounded and I could hold a lot of space and keep the patients feeling really good with the chaos happening around, it was still affecting my nervous system. And so when I got pregnant with my second daughter, I was super depressed. And I was like, how? I'm living in alignment and I'm living in nature. I didn't get it. I was so like just in, yeah, just in inquiry and in inward and just in darkness. And I was like, oh, it's just because I'm pregnant. Like I just kept kind of making excuses for myself. Like it's just because I'm pregnant. Once I have her, I'll feel better. And so, because I was sick with like, I was a little bit sick with my first pregnancy, and I was a lot more sick with my second, and then a lot more sick with my third. So I have three girls. And so I was like, okay, it's just the girl hormones. It's just how my body reacts. So I had Indigo, my second, and I had her here in town. I was the crazy gringa that had her babies just home birth in a pool. Like here, they still go to hospitals, and um, even the midwives that come to home births, they like give you pain meds and stuff like that. And I was like,
Yeah.
no, like I'm just doing it. um, and so she happened to be a free birth, even though I had a midwife on call just in case, because I did have to get stitches my first
Uh-huh.
birth. And so I just thought, okay, I would like her to be there if I need stitches again, which I
Yeah.
didn't. Um, and I learned from a lot from that situation. It's probably a whole nother podcast. But she came a lot faster than the midwife came, which was really good. I feel like she was ready to come quickly. She's such a
Uh-huh.
spitfire, like my second. So it's like it matches her personality, the way
Yeah.
that she came into this earth. And so yeah, so I still felt bad after I had her. And I actually got worse. I was literally stuck in bed. I couldn't get out of bed. I was having vomiting and diarrhea like every single week. Like just I was passing out. Like I just like would try to sit up and everything would turn black. And it was really scary. I like couldn't form my words. Like I couldn't remember the point of my sentence by the time I started. I couldn't remember the point that I was trying to make. So I could tell like my brain was really slow, my nervous system was off. And at the same time, I was like, okay, I'm here in this literally in the jungle. Like there's got to be some plants to heal me. So I went on this path of herbalism and trying to heal myself. And after speaking with some soul sisters that were around me, and they were like, this sounds like Lyme. And I was like, wow, I kind of felt like it could be in my own intuition. And so I talked to a friend that healed her Lyme without any allopathic medicine, just through diet, breath work, regulation, um, subconscious reprogramming, these things that are really important. And yeah, there's something that just shifted in me of like, I'm going to heal this myself, but first I need to get the test to make sure that this is what
Yeah.
is happening.
Yeah.
And family, they were like worried and really didn't believe me. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to pay. It was like $800 to get tests here. So I was like, I'm just going to like here, you can just ask for what test you want, pay for it and get it, which is amazing.
Like,
And
what a dream.
yeah, especially as a nurse that like, no, I've got this. Like I ordered blood work all the time for people. I ordered like,
Uh-huh.
even though I I'm not a licensed nurse anymore, so it doesn't matter. Like
Mm.
the doctors, I would order medication. The doctors are actually technically supposed to do it, but I would do it. And it was a verbal order, but they were like half asleep on the phone. They weren't there at night. And so
Right.
as a nurse the only nurse on the floor, there's no doctors around.
Yeah.
We just have to do what we have to do to get our job done, right? And so they would ask me, like, what do you want to prescribe? It's just crazy. Like I realize in the nursing field, you actually have to know more than the doctor.
That is wild.
They would ask me for advice. What do we need to do?
Oh
Yeah.
my
And
goodness.
they're getting paid way more. I was like, this
Yeah.
is such a pyramid scheme.
Yeah. This doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it was crazy. So I got the blood work done. It said positive for a few different bacteria of Lyme. And I was just like, okay, this is active in my body.
Yeah.
Because not only that, I took a lot of oregano oil because I saw this holistic doctor here, and he
Mhm.
said, oh, you have parasites. I don't
Mm-hmm.
believe in parasites. No, like parasites are actually good for your body. They get rid of dead tissue and cells in your body, and they're actually the helpers. It's like if we
Mm-hmm.
blame the firefighters for the fire, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's that kind of idea. And so there was no parasites that came out of me. I took the oregano oil and I just literally tore up my gut and really helped the slime activate even more. And so, of course, I stopped that. I and I even see it in my second daughter's gut. Like I see, because I did that while I was pregnant with her, I see the
Right.
effects. Like she struggles out of all three of them,
We've got her.
with illness, like she gets colds easily, her immune system. She has way less hair. Uh,
That's so interesting because so many people are like, oregano oil, like, wee, it's a savior.
and it's going to destroy your gut. It destroys everything that's good and bad. It's a natural antibiotic. So it's like not good, especially take long term like I did. It's not good at
Right.
all. And you think you're doing the natural thing. So it's like trying to go on the natural
Yeah.
route, no pharmaceuticals, but yeah, still not a good idea. And so I talked to that friend that cured her Lyme disease, and she, gave me pointers. Like I wasn't eating meat. I needed to have bone broth. So I changed everything. I actually did crave meat for the first time in like 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so I realized it was a combination of many things of why I felt so bad. It was like
Yeah.
that, not having enough nutrition or nourishment for that long, working night shift, having babies back to back. It all just added up. And
Yeah.
then all the repressed trauma, all of that just like literally like filling
Your
my
body
cup.
had enough. Your body is like
Yeah.
done.
Yeah. And the
Yeah.
body is always speaking to us.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful. It's such a miracle to show us exactly, what's happening inside of us. Like, wow, thank you. And so a huge step of it is just trusting your body to heal, that it is healing. And so I sat deep with that trust, like I am healing. I'm healing every day. And so at the same time, we built these houses all during that, and we moved in to our home, and I could really heal because it was finally, I'm in my sanctuary, I'm in my space. Because I was living in Airbnbs and they had mold and they had stuff that I couldn't really avoid.
Yeah.
And so it led me, and I'm so grateful I was in those situations because it led me to choose materials that would not mold, that would not
Mhm.
smell. And the way that I walk into a space here and I can smell it immediately. But when I'm in my home, I don't smell it because I chose specific materials. No, I did not want to build any bamboo because that molds here. And so really like understanding the environment through
Yeah.
my own journey allowed me to be really particular in the way of the environment I wanted to create for not only me to heal, but for my family to grow
Yeah.
and be and thrive in. And so, yeah, I did all the things to heal myself. And after 6 months, the symptoms were gone, all of them, except my vitality was still not there. I was still pretty tired. And so, yeah, it just really led me on my journey of what's next. And then Kundalini came into my life, and in my dreams, I had snakes, lots of
Mm.
snakes in my dreams, and I wasn't afraid of them. And I realized when I was a little girl, I had lots of snake dreams as well. And so they were kind of coming back, and I finally stopped all the coping mechanisms that I had. I stopped drinking for the first time in my life, outside of pregnancy, of like, no,
Mm.
this actually isn't good for me,
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah.
And I just noticed, like, had like deeper awareness of how I felt after I consumed anything.
Yeah.
And with a really pure diet and clean diet, like something as
Yeah.
simple as that would really affect me.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, Kundalini came in, just all these synchronicities of Kundalini. And then I saw like a video of Kundalini activation happening, and I was
Mm.
like blown away. Like, what is that?
Yeah.
And I was like, I need to experience this. And I was actually pregnant with my third daughter when I saw it. And so I was trying
Where
to
did you
get
see it? I'm curious now. Like, where did
just on
you?
Instagram. Yeah.
Okay.
Like Instagram. Yeah, first saw the video and I was just like, what is this modality? This is wild. Because it was pure surrender. It was like nothing I'd ever seen before. I've seen somatic therapy, I've seen all these different modalities, but nothing like this. And I just felt so deeply called to it. I was like, this is such a deep calling. I'd already signed up for like Reiki courses. I was already like
Mm-hmm.
stepping into the world of energy.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like this deeper level of that. And I was like, wow, this is it.
Mm.
And I didn't like, I just knew that this was for me and my path, not for sharing or facilitating. Like I didn't think of that yet. It was just like,
Interesting.
I need to experience this myself.
Uh-huh.
So I was pregnant with Gaia, my third, and I couldn't find a facilitator that would give a session to me because I was pregnant after 6 months. And so I was just like, okay, I just got to be patient. I just took it as a sign. Just wait. Maybe this would be a really big experience for me. I'll just be patient, and couldn't find anyone. So it's just like, whatever. This is just guiding me to wait and sit with this a bit more. So I had her and had the most beautiful birth, undisturbed in my home here, outside on the porch in a birth pool with my husband and a beautiful sister that was here to support the kids. And she just like came into my life like just a few months before. And I did have a postpartum doula set up, but she wasn't here yet. And it's so interesting because she came, my baby came, and I booked the flights for my father-in-law to come support my older girls. And that night he touched down as soon as she was born. His plane touched down. And I chose the flight. Like I bought the flight for him.
Wow.
And it's like my subconscious knew. And so he
Yeah.
arrived with like all of the organic diapers in his hand and the
Oh,
tinctures like at 3 a.m. And I just gave birth to my placenta right then. And I was so happy to have him there to support us
wow.
and to be there like right after I gave birth. Like it was just so beautiful. And then for my girls to have that support too was amazing because they just need so much presence right now. They're 3 and 5. So um yeah, it was really beautiful. And it was just like that power that I received from reaching down and grabbing my own baby and bringing her to my chest. I was like, this is Shakti. This is the most powerful force of all, that as women, we can literally create life.
Yeah.
As much as we can destroy life, it's like we can create, we can destroy. We are the most powerful beings. Like there's our womb, our cosmic womb, is connected to the void. And we don't truly know how powerful we are.
Yeah. And then there's so many women who hate being a woman, which like tears my soul apart when I see like posts about like women just putting themselves down for being a woman and wishing they would be a man. And like and more like not necessarily in the genders, but more like the opportunities that you have when you are a man. And like
Mm.
it really hurts my soul when I see that. And I've been that myself. Like I've been that extremely masculine woman. And like now at the other side of it all, it's just like you said, we are so powerful.
Yeah.
We are so freaking powerful. And yet so many women will never get to the stage where they actually truly feel that power.
Yeah. I mean, we're seers, we're oracles, we are psychic. Like we have the most beautiful gifts that men will never have. And
Yeah.
it's like, wow, when we see that and we tap into those divine gifts, and that's all about what Kundalini activation is to awaken and remember these gifts that are within you, to remember the wholeness that's within. And I realized like I had been in that masculine energy all my life and my body shut down. And even though I was like softening, I was living, in nature and living a slow life, my body still had to go through this healing process to be reborn, to rebirth, to be renewed.
Yeah.
And so I see, I don't connect to the label Lyme. I see Lyme as my greatest gift that I've ever received
Yeah.
because it showed me so much, and it made me who I am today. And I yeah, I wouldn't be who I was and now without it. And so I'm deeply honored to have been through that
Mhm.
journey as hard as it was. And I'm deeply grateful that it wasn't this, I see other people that have gone through that experience where they're going to allopathic medicine, they're receiving all these other things, and their journey is way more intense, way longer, where
Yeah.
they're, hooked up to medications and blood transfusions and or
Yeah.
blood oxygenation, all these different things that I did not go into
Yeah.
because I was in full trust and power of I'm going to heal myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I don't know too much about Lyme, but am I correct in saying that it's termed as like this uncurable disease,
Yeah.
right? It's like,
That they don't have a cure for it.
yeah, and here you are, and you've gone through the journey, and our bodies are so smart if they're given the right tools to
Exactly.
healing.
Exactly. The right environment, the right tools, the right mindset.
Yeah,
There's so many, um, yeah, there's so many different things that we have to look at
yeah,
and also have community, and so being here, to have community, to be surrounded by women after I gave birth, to have
Mm.
that complete opposite spectrum of what I had after my first birth was
Mhm.
so deeply healing, especially after Gaia, my third. I was just, there were
Mhm.
so many women here that gathered, that supported me, that closed the bones, that was, and I hired
Mm.
support too. I had sisters here. I was like, yeah, it was such a difference of like, wow, what we can create. Like, it was like I attracted that experience or magnetized that experience. And it was deeply beautiful. And yeah, and so, hmm,
How did you
it's just
then go, like, how did you go from that experience of giving birth and, really feeling that connection to Shakti to then go to Kundalini activation? Because you said that you hadn't found anyone that would practice on you whilst you were pregnant. Like, how did you go from there to there?
yeah, so I had Gaia, and a month after I had her, I just felt like it's time. It's time to receive this energy work. And I felt like I felt really nervous. Like my body was definitely sweating. Like there was something big about to happen. Like my body knew. And I was also really excited too to see what would unfold. I had no expectation that anything would happen. And like I signed up for this online session because there was no Kundalini activation here in Ecuador. And I was just set up in my bedroom with the laptop on. It was only in Spanish this whole journey, but I knew enough
Wow.
Spanish to get through it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as we know, this experience is felt. There's no words that are
Mm-hmm.
needed. So I just knew that. And yeah, and so I laid down to receive, and I could immediately felt like the music turned on, immediately felt electricity through my whole entire body. I felt like electricity coming out of my hands, out of my third eye. My
Wow.
whole body was moving, and like a goddess entered my body. I was making all these mudras and stuff I've never done before. I mean, I've been a yogi, like I said, very masculine
Yeah.
power yoga. We did not do mudras and like
Uh-huh.
goddess movements. And so I was like, wow, this is like the true yoga. And it was just like I was just in my body and my whole body was moving, but I was just had it was like, wow, like I was just like a fly in the wall experiencing this. Like, what like
Mm.
is just happening? My mind was just blown, like, what is happening? And it was the most beautiful thing I've ever experienced outside of birth. In that moment,
Wow.
I felt there's nothing wrong anymore in my life. I feel whole.
Mhm.
I feel complete. And for the first time, I felt the depth of what it is to be deeply loved by the mother. I felt so held by the earth below me, above, from the cosmos, all at the same time. And I just felt complete. Like there's nothing that I need to experience more in life. I am so whole. And it was that deep remembrance of my soul. And I had these visions of being a priestess and working with this energy. And I was like, it was just like so like, wow, I've already been doing this for lifetimes. And I just had never felt that level of bliss and happiness before. And there was definitely some tenderness in my lower chakras because there was a big opening
Mhm.
happening there. And then after, I had this like big third eye opening. And I actually sat in circle with some sisters right after. And my whole body was like glowing and beaming.
Wow.
And so I was surrounded by all of these goddesses between giving birth or before giving birth and after. And I feel like that also connected to my experience, just
Mhm.
being surrounded by very beautiful women, some already with
Mhm.
Kundalini, very alive, very awakened. And so
Mhm.
there was no denying it. I definitely had a Kundalini rising from that first journey, that first
Wow.
ceremony. And so I just knew like I have to get certified
Yeah.
to share this. And so it was very clear. So I kept receiving, I signed up for an online course because my baby was just 2 months. I wasn't going to fly anywhere
Yeah.
to go share this. So, or to go receive a certification. So I was really grateful to find an online course, which is why I birthed my own online
Yeah.
course from that experience. And I also do give sessions or ceremonial Kundalini activation to women that are pregnant because it's
Mm.
after my journey, it's like, this is what we need as
Yeah.
women. We need to connect to our souls and our babies. And I've even had my pregnant mamas like see the highest possibility of their birth. And while that did not happen in their reality because they chose a different route, but they saw what was possible. And this was just one specific woman. So it could be different for others. I've had
Hmm.
mamas that had, yeah, just amazing, beautiful births because they received Kundalini activation and they built that
Hmm.
self-trust and that soul remembrance and that deep connection to their baby and trust in their baby. So they're typically like women that choose free birth, like I have. It's like they're also open to receiving
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
It's I feel that the founder or the root of this work is soul sovereignty,
Mm.
which is really beautiful. To know yourself, to feel free in your own being, in your own authentic expression. And so this energy work, it's so much more than just energy work. It
Yeah.
allows you to take off the mask that
Yeah.
kept you safe, the armor that kept you safe.
Yeah.
It allows you to remember your divine essence that's within, that really truly God is within you.
Yeah.
And it allows you to be limitless ultimately, which is incredible. It allows you to live into your full potential and to create anything that you desire in life because you have this inner flame of Kundalini guiding you.
Mm.
She is Shakti. She's the divine goddess. She is, yeah, the divine guidance for your life and your spiritual journey and path. And she's the great mother. She's here to also hold you and support you through life. And so having this divinity awaken in me has changed everything for me. And I shared with you like before this call, before we hopped on, I was making $400 a month
Yeah.
working at a startup.
Yeah.
And I'm the sole provider of my family. Like my husband
Wow.
and I, we had this agreement that when we moved here, that I would work online and he would be home with the kids.
Oh, I love that.
And his dad was around a lot as well. Like he grew up with that. Like his dad's an artist, and so he would
Hmm.
always be there for them and raise them as much as he could be there between his jobs. And he didn't work a lot on purpose, so he could be really present with them. And so he got to also give that to our girls. And I love stepping into my purpose, and I love being a mother. And I realized that you can't have it all,
Yeah.
that we don't have to choose.
Yeah. I really love that. And I think there's something so beautiful about just opening up to possibilities. There's actually quite a few moms in my circle who are also business owners who have a very similar kind of arrangement where they are the sole or main income earner, and then the father is more of the homebody taking care of the kids and the household. And I think it's really beautiful to be able to do that and still at the same time hold the beautiful frames of the partner being in his masculine and the woman
Mhm.
being in his feminine. Because I feel like sometimes people think that that has to be reversed as well, but it doesn't.
No, yeah. It's like I teach him to soften and how to nurture the girls a bit more because he does get frustrated sometimes. He's around them so much. And it's like, of course.
Yeah.
And he provides in other ways. He loves growing
Mm.
plants. He loves tending to the land. We have some farmland.
Mm.
So he has cacao growing and bananas and plantains and yucca and potatoes and herbs and all these things. And so he comes home with all of this stuff for us to eat, which is
Oh,
amazing.
I love that.
And we have chickens as well. And so we have our eggs and we take care of them as like family. And we really love living in this way, like really connecting into the earth. And
Yeah.
he actually has this huge boa on the land that really connects with him, the snake
Mm.
that's giant. And she is blue and green and black.
Wow.
And he sees her like every time he goes.
Wow.
And she's there like holding the frequency of the land, like guarding the land.
Wow.
And it's because we don't spray, it's fully organic and she feels safe there. And so he's really connecting with Kundalini in a way, in his
Mm.
own way.
Special.
And while I'm a very airy, I'm very sensitive to energy, he's very grounded. And so he's having his own experience in a really grounded masculine way, which is really beautiful.
Mm.
And so, yeah, we can shift the roles, you know,
Mm-hmm.
the roles a bit, but we can still be in our masculine and be in our feminine and have that
Mm-hmm.
balance within us as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, there's days, you know, I'm on my bleed right now, and it's like he knows, like he's been making all the meals and letting me rest, and it's like he steps into that masculine energy. And there's like this beautiful devotion that we have for each other of like, I want to pour into you,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to, you know, appreciate you and love you how you want to be loved. And it's so beautiful when we're just in devotion to each other and so supportive of each other. And it's unconditional. It's not because you did the dishes or because you cleaned up. It's like we don't we don't talk about it. We just do it. Like we just do it in
Yeah.
the moment. If it's we have a moment and we can do it. Otherwise, there's no expectation, right? There's
Mm-hmm.
never any expectation that I have to do a bunch of loads of laundry or anything like that. It's
Yeah.
just like we just do it together as a team.
Yeah.
And if we are tired or like he just went through this healing phase, it's like I did all the things, you know, and that was like right
Mm-hmm.
before my bleed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just this beautiful reciprocal relationship without expectation,
Mm-hmm.
but it's this deeper level of love and trust that we have for each other.
Mm. I love that. That's so beautiful. I love the story of how you guys met. And I actually felt very similar with my husband. But when I met him, I was definitely not spiritually aware enough to be like, oh my God, like this is what it feels like. But I had that moment, like I was only 23 years old and he walked into my friend's house and I just like locked eyes with him and I knew. Like I knew in that moment. So it's beautiful hearing these kind of stories from others as well. And it is like it's hard to describe. It's just, yeah, it's just a knowing. And then it's just this like devotion and the beautiful journey that you get to go on and grow together and evolve together. And it's really
Yeah,
special. I
it's
really love that.
amazing. I always like I had this vision of my daughters and I knew they had blonde hair and I just was like, this is so confusing. I've only been with brunettes, like as men, in my patterns.
Mm,
And then I met him and he was redhead and it was like, and then we have blonde children. It's like, oh, of course. Like, yeah,
right. Huh.
yeah,
Interesting. I'd love for you to, because I've experienced Kundalini activation through you, and it's definitely the most powerful energy work I've personally experienced. And I've experienced it twice, once virtually and once in person. And they were very different. The first time I would say was more of a like outward expressive experience. Like I felt it more like my body was more moving and it was like doing all these things. And the second time when I had it in person at Earth Daughters, it was way more like a grounded experience and more like internal. So it's fascinating to see how different it can be. But how would you describe it as being like different to other energy work? Like what do you feel like is the biggest difference, for instance, between Ka and Reiki?
yeah. And so they're just two different frequencies. And so, you know, I share at Reiki. I also teach Reiki and Seichum, which is a higher frequency.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just what you're tuned into, it's what your intention is.
Mm-hmm.
And so with Reiki, people don't tend to move. It's not really, I don't feel like it's connecting to all levels of the body,
Mm-hmm.
you know, spiritual, mental, emotional. It's just connecting to, I feel like physical, mental, emotional, and from there it's not going to the etheric body as much as or
Yeah.
as deep as KA is. And so Ka is like reaching those spiritual bodies. The etheric body is really filling the light body. But I feel like Reiki is really helpful as a foundation to prepare the physical body to go deeper.
Interesting.
And so they're just different frequencies and they're both amazing and different and
Mm-hmm.
supportive.
Mm-hmm.
And so it depends on like what you feel like you need intuitively. And yeah, Reiki might just be this nice, you know, warm hug or just being
Yeah.
held by someone and small, subtle shifts. Whether call is like, this is really deep, the power of a mother, Shakti power,
Yeah.
and has so many different unique expressions. So
Yeah.
she can be expressed differently through everyone. Like I shared, like I had a goddess enter my body, like mudras, like this really, like I would say, um, a very rare experience compared to others that receive.
Mm-hmm.
And and also, you know, you could have like this mushroom or psychedelic or ayahuasca journey in one session where it's really inward. You maybe don't move, but you went and saw a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
You could have big emotional releases. There was moments where I was like definitely purifying and releasing and
Uh-huh.
crying in my other sessions and energetically releasing a lot of trauma as well.
Uh-huh.
So it works a lot with trauma, the somatic body. Um, really, she purifies exactly what she needs to. She's very intelligent. We just trust
Yeah.
that. And mm, yeah, insights, messages, clarity, visions, colors, animals, oh, so many different experiences,
Yeah.
feelings of hot, cold, maybe even pain. Like I said, like I felt pain in my lower chakras, and that was just this opening happening.
Yeah.
I've had like clients come in with like 30 years of hip pain and it be gone in one session.
Wow. Wow.
And like I still check on her. I'm like, has it come back? She's like, no. I'm like, wow,
That's incredible. Just
so
again shows
powerful.
the power of the connection between the emotional and the physical body. And I'm actually curious, I made a note of it because you said you started to study German New Medicine, which I
Yeah,
don't know too much about, but
yeah.
I know that it has a lot of to do with the connection between like the emotional, spiritual, and the physical. So was that already during the time that you were nursing? Like, how did you find your way there? And do you feel like that's also kind of been part of what then led you down this path? Does that kind of make sense? I don't know if my
Yeah.
question made sense.
So it was after I experienced the symptoms of Lyme that I
Okay.
started researching and I found Germany medicine. And I don't even remember exactly how I found it. I think just YouTube. I was just looking. I found I can't even remember her name, but I found her work. She's a doctor and
Mm,
she follows Germany medicine
mm,
and studies it. And really, you can learn everything you want to learn if you have an analytical brain that can kind of compute what it's saying,
yeah.
science background on learninggnm.com. And so
Mm,
Dr. Heimer left this beautiful legacy of this website with everything you need to know in it of these healing phases. So the symptoms come after the conflict or shock that happens.
mm,
And it could be, many different shocks to create many different symptoms.
mhm,
And I just know like it was shocks from my childhood. It was shocks from nursing. It was all just
yeah.
kind of coming together to create chronic illness. And yeah, Kundalini really restored that vitality that I was lacking.
Mhm,
And so that's why I became so deeply passionate about
mhm,
Kundalini. But yeah, German new medicine is a framework of, sovereign healing because when you
mm,
understand your body, that everything that we experience and the way that we perceive it in that moment
mhm,
creates an energetic charge in our body, which then, it's a shock, it's energetic charge. It then changes our brain. We have like a spot in our brain that connects to an organ, and that's when that adaptation happens. And so basically, our body evolves and adapts to recover from the shock.
mm,
And so, like for example, breast cancer,
mhm,
a specific type of breast cancer is a nest conflict, nest worry conflict. So, say a mother is really attached to her child. Maybe her child's in the military, she goes off to war, and they start to create the tissue, extra tissue to give her child, milk or love.
uh-huh.
And it turns that tissue, that growth turns into cancer,
Yeah.
is what allopathic says cancer is. But really, it's trying to, the body is trying to create nurturing for that nourishment for that daughter. And that's just, the body is like so smart in that way, and so perfect that we're always just adapting and evolving. And then, the child comes back, she comes back from war, and, essentially the body will recover itself. So um, that's when the parasites come in
You're
to
right.
eat up the tissue, and it might look really ugly, and you might have a lot of oozing from the breast. But eventually, the body does recover itself and heal itself. It's when we come in with our perception of the healing and we give medications or pharmaceuticals that disrupts the healing process and
Yeah.
prolongs or shifts it. mutates, the
Yeah.
cells in a way,
Yeah.
then that's when it can't complete
Yeah.
in the right way. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's one of many examples.
Yeah, there's so many. I know I have a friend, and I know she's had a session with you who has naturally healed her thyroid cancer as well.
Yeah,
So
that's a mortal
powerful.
conflict. Yeah, not keeping up enough, being in your masculine,
Yeah.
and so I love having this background. So when people come to me, I can have a deeper perspective of like, oh,
Hmm.
what conflict are you dealing with, and how can this energy work with this intention support you,
Hmm.
which is really amazing. I love having that.
Hmm.
And yeah, I mean, the thyroid is a big thing for women, and endometriosis is a big
Yeah.
thing. And that's like really not being in alignment and with your feminine
Yeah.
and accepting your feminine ways. Is endometriosis is the tissue rises up and creates this pain and things like that instead of down. And so when we soften into the feminine and we create these embodiment practices and we connect and we start to embrace and accept what it is to be feminine and live according to our inner cycles, then naturally that will heal,
Yeah. I've
if that
actually
makes
had
sense.
a lot
Yeah.
of clients with endometriosis, and a lot of the work I do is teaching how to soften into the feminine, whether that's through cycles, embodiment work, all the things. And every single one of them, their symptoms has gone down drastically.
Yeah.
Like some would even say, I don't even have it anymore because I don't experience it anymore. So it's
Yeah.
incredible because again, endometriosis is one of those things that people say like you can't heal. It's like,
Mhm.
yeah, it's once you connect the energetical, the spiritual, the emotional, the physical, like once you bring it all into alignment, magic happens.
Yeah. Absolutely. And so
Yeah.
I remember the doctor, Melissa Sneed, she's done a lot of the work with German medicine. So she has a lot of stuff on her YouTube if you want to learn more with
Mm.
her. She's amazing.
Yes.
And yeah, so it's powerful when we just trust our bodies
Yeah.
and we start to remember,
Yeah.
this feminine current, the Shakti that flows through each of us.
Yeah.
And we embrace her and we allow her to support us in so many beautiful ways of the recalibration that happens in our bodies and the healing and yeah, just coming back to our wholeness. And so it's really exciting times to see this shift because as a whole in humanity, we're moving to that divine feminine rising, that feminine. And it's not always about so I like to share this with my students. It's like we are definitely balancing, the feminine and the masculine. And when Shakti does rise, her power meets our consciousness, which creates that balance, that divine union within ourselves. And that's where we have that self-love and that wholeness, that feeling of wholeness. But as a collective, we've been in our masculine. And so we're shifting into the feminine to bring back balance
Yeah.
to not only ourselves, our bodies, but also nature
Yeah.
too.
It's
Yeah.
so needed. It's
Yeah.
this work is so important.
We weren't made to be slaves, we
Yeah.
weren't made to work, eat, sleep, repeat, right? We were meant to live in nature according to our own inner cycles with the outer cycles and soften and find our own rhythm. And so, really my business is created around, feminine, uh, yeah, in a feminine way. It's a feminine business where I do only one call a day.
Mm-hmm.
And otherwise I'm pouring into myself or doing back end work. It's like, and if I need to take a day off, I just mark it off my calendar. If I need to take multiple days off, like I typically take a week off every month
Mm-hmm.
because it's important to me. Because
Yeah.
if I'm not deepening my own inner path or inner work or pouring into myself, I'm serving from this empty cup.
Yeah.
And as a mother, I'm holding a lot. I have 3 children. And so right now, this is what it looks like, but I know it will shift as they get bigger. I'll be able to hold more or offer more to the collective. But right now, this is just where I'm at in
Yeah.
this current cycle or season.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's really beautiful to attune to that. And there's no way to do that except when you work for yourself, is that I feel.
Exactly. I completely agree. And I'm
Yeah.
curious. I think I asked you this on one of my posts when you made a comment, but I don't know if you ever answered. Are you also a projector in human design?
I'm not. I'm a generator.
Oh,
I'm
a
a four
generator.
six generator. Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's yeah, the wise teacher. And so that's just where I'm like really stepping into my sixth role of teaching and sharing.
Mm-hmm.
which I never thought I would be sharing Kundalini activation and teaching. And yeah, also I'm going to be shifting some things. I'm actually in a breathwork container, and I'm going to be bringing in
Ooh,
some sacred feminine breath work into my sacred feminine path of energy work, and really combining the modalities, or offering, both,
I love
because
that.
they're both so needed, right?
Yeah.
It's just like, yeah, really powerful. And while I do drop my clients into breath typically in the beginning, it's just like, I'm just really like have been experiencing myself some differences and how to combine the two in a really powerful way, but not in a powerful way that's not something that we can integrate, right? In a really deep way,
Hmm.
where it's like I know that there's something bigger
Hmm.
happening between these two modalities, specifically the school I
Hmm.
chose to be with,
Hmm.
within breathwork is also the sacred feminine path. And so it's like, wow, such
Mm.
my ethos. And
Yeah, I love that. So for those listening and who are like, wow, this woman, I need her in my life, what are your current offerings and how can people work with you right now?
yeah, so right now I have my training, which is my sacred, safe space, sacred feminine space holding training, basically to learn Kundalini activation and give ceremonial Kundalini activation to others and hold space for others. And so I have a global community of facilitators. I have around 80
Wow.
that I've trained. And, we have a month-long journey together, but it doesn't end there. It continues. So I really teach that the purification process and our life is forever. And so I say, like, keep receiving. And so there's two opportunities for them to keep receiving free KA every month online, as well as opportunities to keep practicing, because we only learn from this frequency by practicing and understanding her through that, through other bodies and expressions of that. So this is why I have these free offerings based off of my facilitators having opportunity to keep practicing, and my students to practice through their
Mhm.
first big online group practice. And so I do have free offerings, all on my links page in my Instagram bio.
Which we'll have in the show notes.
Yes, yes. And so I also have an in-person retreat once a year, which is a retreat style training. And
Mhm.
that will be in April 2025 here in Ecuador, where I live. And I only have 6 women come for that. I really like to keep an intimate space, as well as online. I keep it really intimate, 10 or less, when I do run a training. And I typically run trainings monthly unless I want to take off. So December, I typically take off because it's time of the holidays. Everyone's also busy. And so it's just a time for me to pour into my family, spend more presence, just be more present, even though it's just 3 days. The training, 3 full days out of the
Mhm.
month, which I love. I love,
Mm.
all right, like I'm going to show up for one full day. And then I offer one-on-ones and group offerings, but it's just like a bonus, like,
Yeah.
right. And so that's why I do take off days and take time for myself. So that way, my training is really the heart and soul of my business. And
Mhm.
so I do offer scholarships to single mothers and
Mm.
Ecuadorians. Um, and I just recently opened a really beautiful 3-month mentorship and private immersion with me. And so it's a 3-month mentorship, which is online, and then the private in-person immersion is here, actually in the space I'm in right now,
Wow.
in my temple space. And yeah, it's a 1-bedroom home with a beautiful porch, the garden, and I'm actually installing an outdoor bathtub
Mhm.
and an outdoor shower. So yeah, I feel really called to going as deep as possible.
Mhm. I love
And
that.
that takes coming in person. And so we create this powerful foundation online, and the mentorship can be spread out around the immersion or before, whatever feels good. But just to come here and see, not only experience K in person, um, and possibly, other energy work and whatever we feel called to, other rituals, ceremonies, rite of passages. I've also done, uh, womb healing ceremonies, womb massage, things like that. But basically, to see what it's like to live the way that I do, right? Close to nature, slow living. And so it's not going to be like a packed schedule. It's very much like we do one thing in the morning and then we're integrating and we're spending time in nature together in the afternoons, just resting.
That's
And so
beautiful.
it's like, wow, this is possible for you to come here and experience, you know, the beauty of Layampe and the space. It's such a vortex of healing. And there's like this amazing Lumerian portal right off the shore here. And yeah, it's a really beautiful healing place. It's where I came to heal. And so I'm really grateful to give this to others. And it makes sense why we created an Airbnb space. And
Mm,
now it's like all full circle. So
mm.
yeah, those are my main offerings right now. I also do make Reiki attunements and Sage attunements. And so yeah, everything's on my website at
Love that.
templeofka.com.
I love
Mhm.
that. Thank you so much for sharing. One last question before I wrap it up.
Yeah.
I always ask the same question to my guest. What is one piece of advice you want to give to anyone who's listening and who's like fascinated by all of this?
Mm.
Whatever drops in.
Yeah. The main advice that I give is to trust yourself and your journey and your path. And when you start to look at life as there's so many beautiful lessons underneath all of the experiences, and that you are so guided and held by that journey. And when you trust and surrender in life, there is no wrong path.
Mm, I love that. What a powerful message.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much for your time, Kelsey. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on, and I'm so grateful to have you in my life. And I'm sure we'll be crossing paths many more times in the future.
Yes. Thank you, Angel. I love this conversation. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you for tuning into the Empower and Evolve podcast. It means so much to me that you've taken time out of your day to tune in. If you're open to it, and if you love the episode, I would love to invite you to take a couple of minutes to rate and review the podcast on either Apple Podcast or Spotify. This will help me reach new audiences and share this message more broadly. And if this episode really struck a chord with you, I would like to invite you to share it on social media and tag me at It's Coach Kat so we can spread the love together. Until next time, I'll catch you there.